Brendan, so good to chat. Tell me a little bit about the employee experience, right? So what are some of the main benefits that you find recruiting people into Otonomee with this remote first approach?
Yeah, so I suppose I have the benefit of hiring a lot of people for an office-based company, and now I have the benefit of doing it for remote. So I suppose firstly, from a recruitment perspective, it's so much easier. We've taken the geography, I suppose, of recruitment out of the way, which is amazing, because usually what we've had to do is persuade people to come to Cork, come to Dublin when you have an office. Now, I suppose from a recruitment perspective, we can just take that and remove, and we can find the best talent wherever they are. So, in terms of numbers, it's a game changer for us for sure.
And talk to me a little bit about this geography piece in terms of also from the employee perspective about reduced commuting perhaps, or lower rent, or some of those other bits that they find quite attractive.
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose we've a huge amount of examples of it. We've had people who've been able to buy a mortgage in a house where they were in a city, and we're saying to themselves, am I ever actually going to be able to buy a house? We've had people who moved on to Kerry, moved just out of Cork. We've had people in Mayo, and for that reason, they've been able to do things that they probably couldn't have done within a city. And so, for us, we see huge benefit of it, because as I said, we've got, for example, we've got 4 people based in Mayo, we've got people based in Longford, we've got people based in Louth. And what it allows them to do is, and so we've got real-time examples of it, is maybe it's a hobby that they want, right? And they have a hobby, and they want to be close to their families. Whatever that is, it allows them to be able to stay where they are versus leaving those things. Personally myself, I was big into sports, still am. But because I was traveling probably 2 hours a day, you miss out on those things. You're not home till 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the day, and you have to decide one over the other. So for me, for sure, the advantage of working remotely allows people to be, I suppose what we say is where they find meaning, okay, and where they can do their best work. And then obviously it has a huge benefit on their personal lives. That could be bringing their kids to school, it could be collecting their kids. These are the things that people want to do, for some people. And so we always say a lot that it's not for everybody, okay? But it doesn't have to be for everybody. There's a huge selection of employees that would make it work for them.
And of course, it's also not just Ireland, right? You're growing. I mean, the company has grown hugely in this last year. I think from 100 to 300, including Portugal and actually first footprint in the US as well, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. So I think this time last year we were quite a small business. It's all relative depending on the size you're coming from, but. It's been amazing. Ireland, Portugal, as I said, recently in Florida, in the US. Again, I think that it's the same challenge. It's the same opportunities for us. Opening up Portugal compared to just being in Lisbon or just being in Porto. It allows us to look all over Portugal for great talent. Same now in Florida. We didn't need to open up in the US as a whole country because it's so vast. But Florida again, looking for talent around Florida, it's amazing. So it's a great time for Otonomee, and it's been great growth over the last couple of years.
And you've obviously been busy as part of that journey, right?
Yes, for sure.
Talk to me a little bit about employee retention, right? Because again, I'm talking to Aidan and Hilary earlier. It's actually a very important thing in the industry sector, and it has often been a real challenge. But between this mix of remote and culture, your retention figures seem to indicate that it is appealing to employees, and they're sticking around, which benefits clients as much as it benefits yourselves, right?
So I think it benefits everybody. For example, in the BPO world, as you rightly point out, one of the biggest challenges is you bring people in, and again, some of that goes back to cities and some not. Some of it goes to do with culture and employee experience. But keeping people is critical in every business, but especially ours. Especially when it's a bit of a USP, because a lot of the BPOs lose a lot of people. And again, there's many reasons why we've managed to keep on to people. Again, the remote piece helps, okay, but culture is a big thing. I suppose we're quite a small, family-orientated organisation. We plan to keep it that way, right, even with growth. And what that means is personalised. People feel that they're part of something bigger. They see the growth, which is amazing, and they feel that they're part of it. So those things are amazing. So from a retention perspective, everybody's unhappy when you're losing employees. So from a recruitment perspective, and I suppose I have two hats here. I have the HR hat and I have the recruitment hat. So from a recruitment perspective, there's nothing worse than going into a recruitment team telling them, oh, you know, those people that we brought in there last week or last month or last year, they're now all gone and we need to replace them. It's demoralizing. From a cultural perspective, losing people and knowing that people are leaving the organization leaves a feeling of, am I on the right train here or am I on the wrong train? So and then just as important for our customers, or even, you know, everyone is benefiting from it from a customer perspective. When you lose customers, they think a lot. They think, oh my God, we've just spent a lot of money training these people. Now we're going to, you know, now we have to retrain them. Now we've lost talent. Okay, are these the right partners for us? So everybody is impacted by retention, culture, customers, and most importantly, the people themselves.
Yeah, no, makes a lot of sense. And just touching on something you also mentioned, Brendan, around culture, right? So it's very intentional, the culture of Otonomee, I've noticed, for a company that's so young. So maybe talk a little bit to the kind of elements of culture that you find really resonates with people that are looking for work in this industry sector.
Yeah, so I suppose like culture is funny. So when we were really small, Aidan did a leadership for growth course, you know, and so when we got up to that, we were all talking about culture, and I think people were kind of looking at us a little bit sideways, right? Because we were really small and we were talking about culture, and they were saying, well, it's not about culture, it's about the finances and making sure the finances. And we spoke, and Aidan had mentioned about hiring me and mentioning about hiring the team, and it was all about culture. And so for us, culture is the driving force. So we always say we're a people business, right? So we don't have a product. So it's not like it's not like we want to improve our product and we have a phone or or whatever that is. So really, it's for us, we're selling people. Okay, we're selling great people who want to do a really good job. So for us, culture is everything, because if we don't have a really good culture, then we don't keep people. So for us, some of the things that we've spoken about right from the moment is like adult-to-adult relationships from a culture perspective. What does that mean? It means treating people like adults, and you get that back, right? So if you trust people, you treat them like an adult, you end up getting that back. Of course, somebody will go amiss, but it's not like you throw out everything just because of that, because it's the same as in every company. So trust is a big one for us. We trust people. We trust them to do their job. We set clear expectations on what we expect of them. We set clear expectations of what they can expect of us. All right, and then we talk a lot again about adult-to-adult relationships, doing the right things. Trying to do the right things. If it was your business, what would you do? And making sure that you're doing that with every interaction, whether that's an internal interaction with another team member, or whether that's an interaction with our customer or an interaction with our customers. Okay, so everyone, if you start there from a trust perspective, everybody, what we found is people will feel that it's partly their organization, which we want people to feel.
And that's actually quite unique when you think back to some of the legacy or traditional approaches, which are command and control. And you don't hear language. I mean, it's in the name, autonomy. You don't really associate this sort of phrase with many of the traditional BPOs, right?
No, because I've been there, and I think a lot of the traditional BPOs, and some of them are amazing companies that I worked with two of them, is that it's a very parent-child relationship. It didn't start out that way, but you have a customer asking you what to do, or asking you to do something, and then you're passing that down to the team, all right? And so that can feel very parent-child, right? And then that comes into the everyday life. And so what we've tried to do is kind of flip it, right? So we give people, a lot of exposure and a lot of transparency to what's going on in the business. So when a customer asks us to do something, we explain to our team, this is what they've asked, here's why they've asked us to do it. And again, every company probably starts out wanting to do that, or maybe they don't, I don't know. But again, we had a common belief, myself, Aidan, Hilary, and the rest of the leadership team, that that's the way we wanted to run the business, all right? Because who wants to be told to do something without giving context, And I suppose we had to, one of the key things that we thought about when we started was, what's the business that we want it to look like in 3 years, or what's the business that we want to look like in 5 years, right? And then what are the things that we need to do to make that work? And we wanted it to be a transparent organization. We wanted team members to want to be there. And I suppose there were some of the things that we thought, from asking people what do they want in a good organization, that was the things that they mentioned.
And it comes across, very strongly from interacting with not just the leadership team, but with your colleagues. I guess one last question then, is sort of touching on, again, strong growth looking likely in the next couple of years and scaling, and sort of how do you retain that culture and some of the founding principles as you start, growing in numbers again?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think I was asked it when we were 50 people, and then I was asked when we were 100 people, and now I've asked when we were 300 people. So I think it's very simple. Again, I suppose I probably have the experience or the past experience of growing an organization from very small to very big. And Otonomee, what we decided very early on is that it's impossible for a leadership team to solely drive culture, because leadership team is not in every meeting every day, and when leadership teams think that they are the drivers of the culture, that's when it all falls apart, really, in my mind. So what we, as part of our values, or in our values, there's a tagline which is being created by one of our team, Andre. He said, like, we all need to be guardians of our culture, okay? And that was the piece that just stuck. Everybody in the room on that day said, oh yeah, maybe that's the answer to it, right? So now the answer is really the answer is really simple, right? So when we meet people on their first day, we tell them, no matter if you're here on the first day or you're here 3 years, okay, your responsibility is to make sure the next team, all right, have a very similar experience to the one that you've had, okay? And so I do this piece in induction where I speak to people around, like, what have they liked about their first day. I speak to people a month later, what do they like about their first month, and they say the same things. Well, we love that it's personable. We love that people reach out to say hello. We love that people have their cameras on and everything. And so we've captured some of those things. And now we say it's up to everybody to make sure that if you join a call and there's 3 people with their cameras off, and this is just a simple example, right, that you make sure that you have a chat with them and say, was everything okay? This is part of our culture. So it isn't it's not a parent-child relationship. Again, it goes back to that adult piece to say, you told us 2 years ago that one of the main things about it was the transparency and to be able to see people. So now we need to make sure that we keep that, so I think that's the main one. It's making sure that everyone realizes that they're responsible for the culture and they're responsible for the things that they believe that are making it really good. And so that's what we've done today. So every time we've had one of these sessions, for example, and we've met in person, we talk about those things. We've captured them, we've written them down. So that, I think, definitely making sure everyone feels that they're responsible for them is key to it.
I think the guardianship of the culture, collective responsibility, not just the leadership, is
totally. Because look, the leadership team, as you mentioned, Alan, right? You go from 50 to 300. The things that the leadership team were doing at 50 are not possible when they're 300, and they shouldn't be, because if they were doing the same things at 50 compared to what we're doing at 300, we're doing something very wrong, okay? And then that won't scale to 600. Right. So it's putting those foundations that people feel, I have responsibility here, not just the leadership. You're not always looking up, okay? You're looking around and going, what can I do to make sure that we keep this, And so when you tell people that, they all go, that's what I want. That's the kind of organization that I want to be in. I don't want to be in an organization where I'm waiting for one person to tell us what to do, And so, again, when you build that adult-to-adult relation to every part of it, it makes sense, So, that makes sense, guardian of culture, because we already talk about having adult-to-adult relationships. It doesn't make sense if you don't. If you treat like a parent-child relationship for everything else, and then you're saying, well, you need to guard the culture. They're looking at it and going, I don't really understand what that means.
That theme of consistency. We're going to wrap there. Listen, thank you so much for your time.